Welcome to the Cheating Wife Stories channel. If I were asked what the meaning of my life is, then I would immediately answer family. Family is what I work and live for in this world. I like to return home from long trips and see the joyful faces of my children and embrace my wife. These are unforgettable emotions, but it's a pity that it's all in the past. I was faced with a difficult choice and a conversation that changed my whole life. Every time I get behind the wheel of my truck, I feel not only the weight of responsibility resting on my shoulders, but also the excitement of the journey ahead. The road for me is not just asphalt under my wheels. It's my second home where I spend a large part of my life. Many believe that the life of a long-haul trucker is one of solitude and separation from family. And they are right. But for me, it's also an opportunity to see new places, to witness sunrises and sunsets in the most unexpected corners of our country. Every trip starts the same way. I check the cargo, pick up the documents, and set up a playlist with my favorite music. Music helps me not to feel tired and brightens the long hours on the road. But the most important thing for me on these trips is coming home. The moment when I turn the key in the lock of my door is more precious to me than any roads and landscapes outside the window. This time was no exception. A few days before returning home, I already began to feel a slight excitement. Thoughts of how I would meet my children, how I would hug my wife swirling in my head. I even thought about what games we would come up with this time, what stories I would tell them before bedtime. And the gifts. I always try to bring them something special. This time I chose a large Lily Joe set. I know how they love to spend hours connecting the colorful pieces together, building entire cities. Approaching home always evokes a special feeling in me. It's not just the joy of the upcoming reunion, but also the relief of being back with my family, among those who wait for me and whom I love immensely. When I drive up our street, my heart starts to beat faster. I park, get out, and walk up to our house's door. Behind this door, my dearest people are waiting for me. And in that moment, I forget about everything in the world. As soon as I'd opened the door, the world behind me vanished. All that remained was the warm light in the hallway and the comforting sounds of a home hearth. My children, Jack and Alan, ran towards me with shouts of joy, hugging my legs. "Daddy's back." Their voices sounded like music to my ears. I bent down to pick them both up, one in each arm, and hugged them tightly. Their laughter and thrilled faces filled my heart with warmth. Dorothy appeared in the kitchen doorway with a smile that made my heart beat even faster. "Welcome home, my love," she said, her eyes shining with happiness. Putting the children down, I walked over to her and embraced her, feeling the familiar scent of her hair. We didn't say anything for a few moments, just enjoying the closeness of each other. After the initial excitement settled, I took out the gifts. The children squealed with joy at the sight of a big box of Lego. "This is for both of you," I said, and they immediately began to examine the box, discussing what they would build first. The evening passed in a warm family atmosphere. We gathered in the kitchen where Dorothy had prepared dinner, my favorite dish, roasted potatoes with rosemary and grilled steaks. At the table, we shared news and told each other stories. The children chirped happily, telling about their adventures at school and home, while Dorothy smiled, listening to us. After dinner, we moved to the living room. I helped the children with the new Lego set while Dorothy poured tea. We laughed, joked, and I felt energized and happy from the simple family evening. When the children started yawning, I carried them to bed. "Tell us a story, Dad," Jack requested. As I tucked them in, I told them a tale of distant lands and brave explorers until their eyes closed, and they fell asleep, smiling in their dreams. When I returned to the living room, I found Dorothy sitting on the couch, and we spent a quiet evening together. The day after my return, I decided to surprise Dorothy. "Let's go out somewhere tonight," I suggested in the morning, watching her smile light up everything around us. "To our restaurant, perhaps," she guessed right away. I nodded, seeing her eyes sparkle with joy. It was our place, where I proposed to her 18 years ago, a place we went to for the most special moments of our lives. The entire day was filled with pleasant anticipation. I first took the kids to Dorothy's parents, then picked Dorothy up from work, and we went home to get ready for the evening. I watched her as she chose a dress, admiring how beautiful she was. I selected a simple yet elegant suit myself. I wanted this evening to be special for both of us. Upon our arrival at the restaurant, we were warmly greeted. This place felt like a second home to us, where every corner was filled with memories. We were led to our favorite table by the window. The candlelight softly illuminated the table, creating a cozy and romantic atmosphere. That evening, we were served by a waiter named Antonio. He had been working here for several years, and Dorothy, and I knew him quite well. He was always polite and friendly, but this time his behavior seemed a bit odd to me. It appeared he was paying too much attention to Dorothy. His glances seemed overly personal. At first, I thought it was my imagination and decided not to dwell on it. We ordered dinner, and I tried to focus on Dorothy, enjoying every moment spent together. During dinner, we talked about many things, reminiscing about our first dates and plans for the future. I noticed Dorothy's eyes light up when she spoke about our children and some plans for the weekend. We laughed, shared our thoughts about new places I saw on my travels. Everything was perfect, except for the strange feeling I had because of Antonio's glances. After dinner, we decided to take a walk in the nearby park. The night was warm and starry, and we slowly walked, holding hands, enjoying the quiet and closeness to each other. The house was empty since we decided to send our children to Dorothy's parents for the night. So the house was all ours, and we had a romantic evening and night. The next day, after morning coffee with Dorothy, I went to pick up the kids from Dorothy's parents and came back. Dorothy asked me to run to the local store to buy some groceries, and I enthusiastically agreed. Lately, I've been enjoying running errands, as it gave me a chance to savor the everyday aspects of family life, something I greatly missed while on the road. Entering the store, my attention was drawn to a familiar figure by the soda aisle. It was Maria, the manager of our favorite restaurant. She seemed a bit surprised to see me, but quickly smiled and waved. "Hello, how unexpected to see you here," she said, approaching me. "Hi, Maria. Yeah, just stopped by for a few things. How's the restaurant doing?" We chatted briefly about work and how the last dinner service went. Then, unexpectedly, the conversation turned to Dorothy. "You know," Maria began, looking around as if searching for the right words, "I've seen your wife here a couple of times in the past few weeks. She came to the restaurant late in the evening. I thought it was odd since you usually come together." My heart skipped a beat. "She came alone?" I asked, trying to hide my concern. "Yes, and what's even stranger, she wasn't alone. Antonio, one of our waiters, walked her to her car after closing. I'm sorry, maybe it's none of my business, but I thought you should know." I thanked Maria for her honesty, though my mind was racing with thoughts. We exchanged phone numbers in case I needed to find out more. Driving home, I tried to piece everything together. Dorothy had never mentioned visiting the restaurant without me, let alone meetings with Antonio. What could this mean? I needed to gather more information before jumping to any conclusions. But one thing was clear: my peace was disturbed, and I had to figure out what was going on. I came back home, and the entire day went on, as if nothing was amiss, just a typical family day and nothing more. The next morning, as I was drinking coffee in the kitchen and looking at the children's drawings on the fridge, I realized I couldn't live in ignorance. I needed to find out the truth, whatever it might be. I decided that I had to act thoughtfully and quietly, so as not to disrupt our family harmony without a good reason. I also thought that Maria might come clean, which was very likely. The first thing I decided to do was talk to Dorothy, but not directly about my suspicions. I asked her how she spends her time when I'm not at home. She told me about her weekdays, how she picks up the kids from school, about the evenings spent watching movies or reading books, and also about her work in accounting. Not a word about visiting the restaurant. I tried to read between the lines, but Dorothy's face showed nothing but the usual fatigue and concern for household matters. After breakfast, when Dorothy took the kids to school, I sat down at the computer. Starting an investigation on my own wife seemed out of the ordinary, but I needed to know the truth. I found a private detective on the internet recommended for professionalism and discretion. After calling, we agreed to meet in a cafe not far from my home. The meeting went quietly and without any unnecessary eyes. I described the situation to the detective, not omitting details about Dorothy's recent visits to the restaurant and her meetings with Antonio. The detective nodded, listening attentively, and noting down key points. "We will start with surveillance of the restaurant," he said, "and try to establish whether your wife comes there in your absence. If yes, then we'll try to find out if she meets someone." After discussing the details and the cost of the services, I felt some relief. Finally, I had taken a step towards solving this mystery. Still with a heavy heart, I returned home to prepare for the next step, a conversation with Maria. I hoped she could provide more information that would help me and the detective in our investigation. I called Maria and suggested we meet after her work. She agreed, understanding the seriousness of the situation. The restaurant closed at 10 in the evening, so I told Dorothy that I would visit a friend whose car had unexpectedly broken down, but I actually went to meet Maria. We met near the restaurant. I didn't want my car to smell of perfume, so we decided to talk outside. Maria looked nervous, but I couldn't help but notice she was wearing a beautiful outfit. "I want to ask you for a favor. I'll be leaving again for a couple of weeks soon, and I need you to keep an eye on Antonio for me. Can you help?" I proposed. "Actually, keep an eye on him." Her voice sounded tense. "No." I nodded. "I've hired a private detective, but if you see anything suspicious, let me know. I won't forget the favor." Maria agreed to help, and after chatting for another 10 minutes, I finally offered Maria a ride home. Arriving at her house, I left the car windows open and went to bed as if nothing was out of the ordinary. "Out of help to a friend?" asked my wife. "Yes, all good. His battery was dead," I replied, and we went to sleep. I was scheduled for another trip in a week, so I spent that time fully immersed in family routines. Dorothy didn't raise any suspicions, which pleased me. Before leaving, I said goodbye to everyone and set off. In the following weeks, the detective didn't update me on his findings. I called him a couple of times, but he was only collecting information and was ready to talk only after I returned to the city, which was quite frustrating because I wanted to know everything as soon as possible. I hadn't called Maria, thinking she would contact me if anything important came up. I was supposed to return home in a week, but since I finished my deliveries much earlier than planned, I could return home much earlier, specifically 4 days before my official return. It was midnight when I decided to return early, having bought a bouquet of flowers and a large teddy bear in advance, hoping that all was well and wanting to surprise my beloved. I brought the truck to the base, then switched to my car and headed home. Near the house was Dorothy's car, and on the second floor in our bedroom, the light was on. Why is she not sleeping at such a late hour? I thought as I approached the house. I turned off the car and went to the trunk to get the gifts, noticing the light had been turned off, which seemed odd to me. I walked up to the door and turned the key. It was late, and I wanted to shop for Dorothy because I knew she wasn't sleeping, but I didn't because I thought our children were asleep and I didn't want to wake them. I took off my shoes and saw a pair of sneakers I hadn't seen before, some Nikes. I immediately went upstairs and saw Dorothy sleeping in our bed in our bedroom. I turned the light back on. "Don't pretend, I know you're not sleeping," I said seriously. "I had a feeling you'd come home," she said playfully, and jumped out of bed, wearing extremely seductive lingerie in the color of a blue lagoon. "Look what I bought for you today," she began. "That's all wonderful, but where are the kids?" I asked. "The kids? They're at my parents'. I got held up at work today and realized I couldn't pick them up from school. So I asked my dad to go get them, she said. So you said you bought this outfit today, didn't you? I asked. Did I? Did I say today? Sorry, it was yesterday. I just saw you pulling up and decided to put it on, she said. And why are you not sleeping at such a late hour? I asked. I don't know. Insomnia. Plus I told you, I had a feeling you'd come home, and I was right. Besides, you seem so serious. Is everything all right? I think you need to relax, and I can help with that, Dorothy said, beginning to allure me to bed, but I felt something was off. Her words made me uneasy, as if she was hiding something. And then I remembered the shoes in the hallway. Did you buy yourself some sneakers too? I casually asked. Sneakers? Ah, the sneakers. Yes, I found them on the street today, she said. And brought them into our house? I asked. Well, yes, they seemed nice. Could be for the kids in the future, she said, and at that moment someone started calling my phone. I got distracted from the conversation with my wife and looked to see who could be bothering me at such a late hour. It was a detective. I stepped away from Dorothy and picked up the phone. Yes, Mr. Stone, I have shipped the truck. It is in perfect condition. What happened? I began trying to pretend I was talking to my boss. Tony, come to the window, said the detective while Dorothy was sitting on the bed listening. The detective continued. Do you see me? No, sir, I said. Then I saw a faint flash of light on the second floor of the neighboring house. How about now? Said the detective. Yes, sir, I replied. I have two pieces of news for you, one bad, the other very bad. Which one do you want to hear first? Asked the detective. Let's start with the first one, sir, I suggested. So the bad news is that your wife is unfaithful to you. And over these past few weeks, I have accumulated more than 8 sheets of compromising material, 34 photos, and 2 video recordings, he began. Okay, I understand, sir, I said. The very bad news is that you decided to come home and didn't inform at least me about it. Because in your house, right in the room where you are standing, in the closet, sits your wife's partner, said the detective, and chills ran down my body. I had already felt the presence of another person in the house, but now this feeling intensified exponentially. And what do you suggest I do, sir? I asked. I don't even know what to advise you in any case. It's your house, and it's entirely your right. Just no foolishness. We have collected all the evidence. We will need to meet so you can pick them up, and for now, I wish you good luck, said the detective. Thank you, goodbye, sir, I said and hung up the phone, continuing to stand like a statue by the window. Is everything okay, dear? Dorothy said, sitting on the bed. Then I turned to her with a forced smile on my face and said, Yes, my sunshine, better than ever. I jumped on her, hinting that I wanted her, but she started to resist. Wait, what about taking the shower first? You want to go straight to bed after the journey, she said, and I realized she wanted to use the time I was in the shower to sneak her partner out of the house, but I wouldn't let her. Then I'll go to the closet and get some clean clothes, I said. Better go take a shower and I'll bring everything to you, she started to say. I'd rather get everything myself. You better get ready and wait for me, I said, getting up from the bed and heading towards the closet. Stop. She stood in front of me and started to speak. I just thought I'd missed you so much and you don't really have to take a shower. Are you kidding? Let me get to my closet, I said, and Dorothy threw herself on me, starting to kiss me fiercely. Then I pushed her off me onto the bed and went to the closet. Don't open it, please, she said, starting to cry. You gave up too soon, I thought to myself, and opened the closet, seeing a young man sitting at the bottom in his underwear, none other than Antonio. He looked up at me, and I saw fear in his eyes. Oh my God, dear, there's a burglar in the closet. I started yelling, grabbing Antonio by the ear. I led him into the hallway and firmly closed the bedroom door. I put Antonio in the bathtub, closed the door, and turned on the cold water. Are you out of your mind, kid? I began. Sorry, he said as I drenched him with cold water. That's not the right answer. Why did you sleep with my wife? I asked him. Please forgive me. She just started showing interest in me, and I couldn't resist, the waiter said. Speak the truth, I demanded and doused him again with cold water. It's true, he exclaimed, and suddenly I heard someone trying to break into the bathroom. It was Dorothy who had come out of her room. I left her partner in the bathtub and went to my wife, telling her to go to her room and wait for me there. I realized Antonio wasn't lying to me. He was too scared to lie. So I took him outside and told him to never come back. What angered me the most was that all this happened in our family home. Dorothy purposely left our kids at her parents' to deceive me. I went back to the room and found Dorothy sitting on the bed in tears. Why are you doing this? I started. What? She asked. Why did you destroy our marriage? Why did you deceive me? I asked directly. What do you mean? I was scared to fall asleep in a room with someone, and you came and saved me, she said, and a tear rolled down my cheek. Dorothy wouldn't admit to her affair and denied it. I silently took my bag and left the house. Dorothy tried to stop me, but I told her I would only contact her when she was ready to tell me the truth. I left for a motel, leaving Dorothy alone at home, indifferent to her. This woman no longer exists for me. She tried to contact me, but I didn't care. If she had told me the truth and we had talked, maybe I would have reconsidered. But now I was certain I wanted a divorce. The next day, I met with the detective who showed me the results of his week's work, impressing me so much that I paid him more than he asked. I had photos of my wife kissing, hugging, walking, and going to hotels with a waiter, and even them being intimate in my own house. It shocked me most that she dared to bring someone into our home, our private world. It was a terrible feeling. I returned to the motel, first spoke with a lawyer, and we filed the papers in court. For some reason, I decided to call Maria, and she came to me. We just talked all evening, and then I drove her home. Dorothy received a copy of the evidence of her infidelity and realized that resisting was futile, so she signed the documents. I had a wild desire to spread the photos and videos among her acquaintances, but I refrained. Only Maria and my parents knew about it. 3 months later, we were able to get divorced. It was a difficult time because I didn't see my children, and every day was a nightmare. During the trial, I found out that Dorothy cheated because I often left and wasn't there for her, so she sought male attention elsewhere, not realizing it could go this far. She wanted reconciliation, but I was opposed and decisive. If she had told me everything from the start, perhaps things could have been different. But I didn't want to continue living in lies and ignorance, especially since I didn't want to quit my job. By court decision, the children remained with Dorothy, and I didn't touch the house. Dorothy was an excellent mother, but definitely not a wife, as she deceived me for over a year and led me on. She destroyed our sacred place, the restaurant where I once proposed to her, and it was hard for me to come to terms with all this. I promised the children that we would see each other every time I returned to town. After his exposure, Antonio decided to leave town. I don't know what would have happened to him if I had not been the husband, but either way, I didn't care about him. I understood that he wasn't to blame, and that Dorothy was responsible. Of course, I traveled a lot, and was often not at home, but is that really a good reason to deceive and lie? I would have liked Dorothy to confess everything to me right away, but unfortunately, that didn't happen. Eventually, I now live in a small house that I bought with my own money. I pay alimony and work. Maria often visits me, and we can spend a couple of nights together, but no more. I don't want a relationship, but Maria is not against this, so it works out in my favor. Dorothy continues to work, and it's hard for her because her parents are, to put it mildly, upset with her. As a result, she started drinking just a few months after the divorce. When I came to visit my children, I smelled the alcohol on her breath, and Dorothy looked unwell, so I called the police, and eventually I was able to take the children through the court. I did not expect this turn of events. I thought Dorothy could live and raise the children calmly, but apparently she couldn't cope. Eventually, I returned to my old house, but later sold it and bought a new one in the same area. Now I live with the children and had to quit my job and switch to a new, less paying one, but one that allows me to come home every day. My parents and Dorothy's parents helped by looking after the children, while Dorothy lived in her parents' house and did nothing but drink alcohol. 4 months later, Maria finally moved in with me and started living with me and my children. To my surprise, the children accepted her warmly, as she did them. Maria quit her job as an administrator and started working online from home, spending only 4 hours a day on it. Overall, my life has settled down, and everything has returned to its usual course with minor changes. I did not expect everything to turn out this way, and sincerely believed that Dorothy could handle the children and their upbringing, considering that I was financially supportive. But alas, she chose a different path. However, I am only glad about this. I don't feel guilty about anything. Everyone says I did the right thing, and I think so too. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care,